Yeah. Hi there, this is Christina Simmons, your host with the Say Yes to Holiness podcast. I am super excited today to be with Renee Vidor. Vidor. See, I said it wrong, and I even wrote it down several times. But Renee and I have had the opportunity to cross paths through our tribe, the Fire Ring, through Author Academy Elite, Igniting Souls. And it's just such a great pleasure to be able to welcome you to the podcast because I know the message that you have, particularly for women, is so desperately needed in our world today. So Renee, welcome. And where are you? And tell our folk where you are and what it is that you're about.
I will. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be able to convene with you. I am here in Columbus, Ohio, and I am with he's at work, but I have my husband and we have two teenage children. And I am currently a coach, author, and speaker, as well as a stay-at-home mom in a way. My husband and I also have a rental business, and that it takes up a lot of time as well. So you asked a little bit about my journey. I am now currently 37, and I'd have to say my journey that I like to think of really started probably right before getting married. I was married at 21, and I was a person that was very confident and independent, but then I got married, had children at a young age, and realized that I had lost a lot of who I was. I didn't know who I was created to be anymore. I felt like I kind of had a mistaken or stolen identity. And my journey has been going through that and learning what God created me to be, who he created me to be, and whose I am, and helping now that I know how to do that. And I've been able to work through a process that he's shown me. Now I'm helping others to figure out who they're created to be so that they can go out and do what they're designed to do. That's just in a nutshell, a little bit about my journey, and be happy to share anything that's helpful.
Yeah, it very much corresponds to a lot of the work that we do within Say Yes to Holiness of we need to know our why. We need to know who we are and especially whose we are. We talk about all the time. And then why are we here? And that call to holiness that we speak of in the Catholic world is very much about just responding to the invitation that God gives us to be able to become fully who he created us to be. And it's so beautiful that you're doing that work with women. And what was it that, kind of prompted you? Was there anything in particular that prompted you to say, I need to do this for a community of women?
A specific moment, I'm not sure when that was, but within the last few years, I would say that in 2017, I was given the opportunity to write a book with Author Academy Elite. And I realized that I knew exactly what that was going to be on. It was going to be on comparison. And if you think about it, what is one of the biggest downfalls of us women? We compare ourselves to each other. We compare ourselves to what society tells us we're supposed to be. To our own expectations that we don't live up to. And it's a deep-rooted issue. So that was probably where it was birthed. And then down the road, I realized the real calling to bring unity for women to come together to be able to recognize that same mission of being able to be who they're created to be. I mean, so many times as women, I feel like we're not allowed to be us. We have to put on masks. We have to put on a front of, I got to be careful. I'm not too pretty because someone else will feel like this. And I need to make sure I'm pretty enough or else I'm not going to be able to land that job and that's just appearances. But then there's also the achievements that we struggle with when it comes to, if I'm just a stay-at-home mom, then I'm not good enough. But if I am working a full-time corporate job, then I'm not a good enough mom. So we judge, and that has been a large plight of what I'm working toward, is to bring down those barriers of comparison so that women are able to come together and really hold hands and help one another be able to be who they're created to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I I call him out because all of those are lies from the father of lies himself.
Yep.
And he pervades our society with all of that, so that that way we do become discouraged, we do lose hope, and then we forget whose we are.
Right.
And it's beautiful. So you talked about mass, and this work is being done on the masculine side. The Mask of Masculinity,
Mm.
Howes, he came out with this book, and he said it was one of the most transformative processes for him, as a man. And so what's important, sisters out there, what we're talking about might necessarily be, hey, oh, guys, this isn't for guys, but no, this is something that we all struggle with. And but we need that community. And what have you seen has been the benefit of a group of women coming together in unity, and what have you seen as the positives that have come out of it?
I've noticed the ability to feel freedom.
Mm,
Freedom is a large aspect of where I'm focused. The ability to be who we are and whose we are, and to shine and not be putting out somebody else's light or someone else putting out our light. So when we come together as women, and I'm talking about Black, white, Asian, from different backgrounds, different demographics, psychographics, even religions, we can always find some common ground as human beings that all bleed the same, and we can really learn from one another. And that's important. I believe that the ability to learn from our sisters has increased my ability to have empathy, my ability to grow as a person. I've just learned so much from my other sisters. So I really appreciate that.
yeah, you made mention about diversity, racially, demographically, economically, and in what's going on in our world today. This is so important for us to be able to have a place to be able to learn, as you said, from our sisters, so that that way we can be better people, and really be. I talk about be the saint that you can be,
Yeah.
that living, breathing, wonder working saint, of God's love in the world. And so, what's going on right now? Have you seen that impact in your own life, or in the lives within your community?
I have. I've seen impact in many different ways. I've seen positive and negative impact.
Mm-hmm.
But I choose myself to focus on the positive, and so I'll share a little bit about that. In the positive impact, I've noticed that there are women that I have, and I'm thinking of one special friend, especially, who has grown because of all of this. She has told me, and she's African American, and she used to come to my church, which unfortunately is mostly a white church. We just don't have diversity there, which breaks my heart. But she said, we were able to talk, and it opened up conversations. And she said, I used to feel so judged, but now I realize that it wasn't really anyone judging me. It's just that I didn't feel secure. And therefore I'm the one, like I could have been who I was, but I chose not to be because I didn't feel like I could. So it opens up the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one example of so many where I feel like once we build relationships with people, especially people who are different than us, because we can't change certain aspects about us. We can't change our history, our background. We can't change our skin color. We can't change necessarily, sometimes we can, but how much money we make, or how many children we have or don't have. We have less ability to change some of those things right at the spur of the moment. So if we can find that common ground and build a relationship on that, then we're going to be able to see the positives, and we're going to see where situations like what's going on right now, albeit it's not just a once in a lifetime. I mean, with what we're experiencing with the Black Lives Matter and many other things going on right now, it's been building for a long time. And I believe that there needs to be discussions about this, that we need, no matter what our background is, we need to open up and hear our brothers and sisters and hear where different perspectives are coming from.
Mhm.
Because even if one side could say, and I say side because I'm saying very extreme sides. If one side is saying that it's only this way, another saying it's only this way, even if there's extreme beliefs, the truth is that perspectives are only that, they're perspectives. And normally there is something in the middle that can help change those perspectives so that we can come together in unity.
Mhm.
So what is it going to take? It's going to take each of us as individuals being able to find those positive impacts and find and reach out. So that's been my whole goal, is to reach out, to learn. And especially, I mean, I pray, I'm like, God, show me who I can learn from, show me who I can impact as well. And that's where he's shown me specific people, and I've been able to reach out, and it's been beautiful. I've been able to share then when I learn something that's taught me, I can share it to my small influence, and that's impacted other people as well on some stories that as a white woman I never would have had on my own. So I'm grateful to God for having my eyes opened.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a similar experience. The Say Yes, you know, summit was last month, and I had reached out to different speakers and to get different perspectives, and it just worked out, unintentionally, that the majority of those who spoke were white. I did have a couple of Hispanic perspectives, Latino, and but it was just something of where I didn't have, a black, perspective in particular. And, what we were talking about was, the impact of COVID, and how can we move forward. And so, but it was something where a beautiful young lady reached out to me, and where she expressed her disappointment that there wasn't someone of color, that she looked and she didn't see herself
Right.
represented, and it was on her heart, and she reached out to me. And it was something where the reason I bring this up is because the conversation that I had with her was why I posted in our forum, because I was just like, we're not talking about it, and it's not that we want to get hacked and get distracted, but yet it's still something that we need to be aware of. We need to at least be intentional and say we're doing all that we can, and right now, and making sure that we are addressing it or have addressed it and are continuing to do so. So I'm a firm believer that you're always doing, in the Army, they call it an after action review. So there's a constant state of assessment, go through, and then assess again. And you're always continuing to improve. But I share that story because her perspective and the conversation that ensued then prompted me to then start the conversation. And now look at us, we're now having conversation. So that's how we bring about that change, is through dialogue, as you so beautifully talked about. I've been using a phrase, fearless authenticity, and I think it ties in exactly with what you've been talking about, which is that whole comparison thing and being authentic,
Right.
to be able to take off the mask. What is it, in your process? Because you said that God showed you a process.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, could you share a little bit about what that process is, and how you use that within your community?
Yeah, I'd love to. And this is a process that you can pick up and start to use anytime. So just try it out. The subtitle for the book is called, well, the book is Measuring Up, and then How to Win in a World of Comparison. So it's called the WIN method, WIN. And W stands for weighing your cost. Whenever you have anything that you are wanting to create change from, you have to find out why. That why is so important,
Mhm.
because if you don't have a good why, and you don't weigh the cost of what it's going to cost you if you don't do it versus if you do make change, then
Mhm.
you're not going to move forward with any momentum. It's not going to matter. You're not going to complete your task. So
Right.
weigh your cost. Next is the I, it's innovate your identity. And that means that you're always you. That's the best way I like to put it. You were created to be you. God made you with your identity. But unfortunately, because the world we live in, because of our experiences, and because of the fall of humankind, we attach many other things to us. So I may attach something like I'm ugly, or I'm just pulling out things, or I might say that I'm stupid. And we put these labels on us, and they become part of our identity. There may be people
Mm.
from our past. It could be a parent that had told us that we were never going to measure up to our older brother or something like that.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things, when we innovate our identity, that we need to take them off and remove them. They no longer are to be part of our identity. But we also have things that maybe we have not put on that we need to put on, and that belongs in our identity. That may be things, and I will say myself as a believer in Christ, that I look at him, and I look at him as how I want my identity to be. So what are some attributes or aspects? I am persistent. That is one of the pieces of my identity. I am somebody who is I am caring, I am loving. There are different parts of our identity that are across the board that everybody was given. I look at 2 Timothy 1:7 that talks about that you were not given a spirit of fear or timidity, but of a spirit of love, power, and self-discipline, or a sound mind. So those belong in my identity because I was created with them. Therefore, I know that even if I'm not measuring up to it yet, they belong there. So when I innovate my identity, I'm taking out the junk that doesn't belong, adding in what does belong. And also, I'm recognizing my strengths, and I'm seeing who I was created to be, even uniquely differently from other people that may not be those corporate attributes of my identity. So that's innovating our identity. So now we know who we are, we know what to measure up to. Lastly, navigate our journey. This is where many people start. They start with the behavioral modifications, right? We think in terms of, okay, I need to make a habit within 21 days and then everything's good. Or, or if I just don't look at, if I don't look at Instagram or don't look at this person, then I'm going to be fine and I won't compare myself anymore. But unfortunately, our brain doesn't work that way. The root issue is still there. So once we figure out who we are, and again, if you believe whose you are, then you are going to be able to navigate your journey more successfully. And you're going to avoid those roadblocks and those potholes and those distractions that are going to take you away from whatever your destination is. So that's the win method, so that you can become a winner at life.
Mhm. That's beautiful. I absolutely love that. You were talking very simply about the importance of mindset,
Mhm.
and James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, he talks about cue, routine, and reward. And we all focus on, I want to change, the behavior, so that tends to be our reward. And so we focus on changing the routine in order to get a different, outcome. And we forget that it's the cue. What was it that prompted us to go and do the thing that got us the whatever it was that we don't like? And that's all about mindset. And so it is about rooting ourselves in Christ, putting Him on, and then our identity then becomes to match. So
Mhm.
I speak about growing in virtue each day is a necessary step towards holiness. And in the same way, what you're talking about, to be a winner in life, doing that work, navigating your journey,
Mhm.
innovating your identity, and weighing the cost is right in line with that. And it's a beautiful way to look at how we can take the language of God's love and mercy for us and be able to put on, Christ, Christ is our identity, and then being able to be that, person who he created us to be. So I love that. I remember you spoke last year at the Igniting Souls conference,
Yes.
and you shared that acronym because I wrote it
Yep.
down, and it stuck with me. So speaking of the conference, are you going to be speaking there again this year?
I don't know yet, to be honest
Oh,
with you. I
okay,
will be doing as far as I know, the ISDTV. So I look
okay,
forward to doing that.
okay.
And I love being involved and
Mhm.
seeing how everything works behind the scenes and helping out in any way I can.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to give people an opportunity to get to see you speak because you do such a beautiful job presenting. And but your book is coming out. So tell us a little bit more. You alluded to it, talked about it a little bit, but can you give us a little bit more about your book?
Absolutely. So it's measuring up how to win in a world of comparison. And I do take people through the win method and show them how to be able to win in a world of comparison. And
Mhm.
again, that goes to not winning in the world's perspective, but winning. Actually, I have to tell you, what's really neat about this book is that the title came very easily, Measuring Up,
Mhm.
because so often, and you asked about my story, I felt like I could never measure up. Like I just
Mhm.
couldn't measure up. And that was that mindset, that belief is I just can't measure up. And it came
Mhm.
very easily as a title. Did you know that the title of my book is actually in the Bible?
Mhm.
Okay, it is. It's in First Corinthians. No, it's in Ephesians 4:13, at least in the
Okay.
NLT, and it says that we are measuring up to the full standard of Christ. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it till after I wrote the book. But it's pretty neat to see how all things come together for good. But that being said, the the book, one more thing I can add that can be helpful for listeners when it comes to comparison is to identify what your comparison roadblock is. You can
Mm.
really bring comparison down into three different areas or three different roadblocks. The first one is assets, second is appearances, and the third is achievements. So when you are trying to figure out this, and you said it well, Christina, earlier, when you said, yeah, men actually struggle with this. It just looks different than women. That's
Mhm.
exactly true. That's what I found in all of my research and all of the men that I interviewed, is that it's actually a human problem, human condition, not just for women. But these three different roadblocks, when you figure out which one you are typically running into and crashing into, and it's taking you off course, then you're able to eliminate more often that roadblock. That's how you can navigate that journey. So appearances would be things like, or I'm sorry, your assets would be things like your monetary, your retirement, perhaps. It might be your material items and the things that we think of as assets, but also it can be relationships. Your health is an asset. Your
Mhm.
children can be an asset. So we look at the things even outside of money that we often compare. Secondly, the appearances, that one's pretty self-explanatory. It can be our looks, how we view each other. It's pretty self-explanatory. And achievements would be the way that we see others producing more. Perhaps they have a better title than we do. We may not feel like we measure up when it comes to our education,
Mhm.
but or how many podcasts have you done versus how many, there's all
Right.
these different, how many likes do you have versus I
Mhm.
have, and there's these ways that we find achievements, and those are the three different aspects, roadblocks. So when myself, appearances is what I really struggled with long ago,
Mhm.
and that God's helped me through. And you got to hear at conference a little bit more on a story that just really got to, at the very end, just wow, bring it all together in a way I never expected. So
Mhm.
that's a little piece of the book that I can leave with you to be able to help.
Mhm. where might they be able to get your book and when, which gets into a little bit of the frustration of working with publishers.
You know, our publisher has been great. I have to say, like, AAE has been amazing. And of course, there's always little companies that are affiliated that help to do a project or a job that can end up being a little bit of and doesn't help. COVID can create a little bit of havoc too. But I will tell you that this will release whenever God wants. Most likely that will be June 24th of 2020 if you're listening later. And it will be available in all, well, not audio yet, but in paperback, Kindle, and hard book eventually here, on Amazon, as well as wherever you'd find books. So it's coming soon.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about being able to get a copy and be able to remind myself of the acronym myself. And, and your identity roadblocks are great because they transfer so beautifully into the 7 deadly sins, of how it is that we, struggle with these things. And what those identity roadblocks, are, is that they're showing you where is it internally that you're probably struggling, that you need to identify and go, hey, Lord, I need your help to heal me of this. And then from there, you're able to move forward. And that's the thing that sometimes we're afraid to do. We're afraid to go deep with the doctor of our soul, and allow him to heal. But when he does, when we do that, then we truly do become those winners in life. And your work is definitely a witness of that. And I commend you for all that you're doing, because you're helping so many people be able to transition into a life that is truly free, as you said, focusing on freedom. And we need so much of that in our world today. True freedom, stealing from Braveheart,
Yes.
that call to freedom, it's in our DNA.
It is. It is. It's part of our identity. We are called to be free, and whoever is set free is free indeed. So
Amen.
if we're not free, then we're not being who we're created to be.
Yep, and we put on an identity that is not our own, and then the world suffers because we're not that light in the darkness. And there's so much darkness out there right now, and so it's beautiful to be able to share with my audience another light that they can turn to, that they can learn from, and be able to benefit, so they can continue to pursue holiness. But any final thoughts that you might have, words of wisdom or thoughts that you want to share with the audience as we kind of wrap up?
Oh, I have to say thank you so much for having me on, because holiness is so important. And I believe in the message that I've been given. It really is the view of sanctification, that wherever we are right now, whoever we are right now, we aren't at our final destination. We're not at our final form. So just be encouraged and know that you are created as a beautiful individual, that you were created specifically, uniquely, and that you have an identity that was already pre-designed before you were even birthed on earth. Therefore, work through that, whether you call it sanctification, whether you call it measuring up, whatever you call it, just know that you are constantly, you have the ability, so use it, to learn how to become more like who you were created to be. And at the final end, you want to be able to say, well done, right? You want to know that you are that winner. And so that's really what it's all about, is that journey on the way. So thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast and a pleasure.
I very much have enjoyed it. And so Saint Thomas Aquinas, long time ago, one of our great saints in the Catholic tradition, said that the supernatural builds upon the natural. So it is inherent upon us to use what God has given us, so that then he can build his supernatural, upon that. And in so doing, then we become exactly who he created us to be. So it's beautiful. to have the chance to be able to converse with you. And thank you for your time. Know of my continued prayers for the book launch and everything that's coming up. And for all of my audience out there, thanks again for joining us. And know that I will continue to be praying for you, especially that we're able to, each of us, do whatever it takes in the pursuit of holiness so that we may be able to tell the master of death, not today. Thanks again for joining us here, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you so much.